All right, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome back to another Freedom Fridays. Today we have somebody that from the second I met this guy, I was like, there's just something about him that, like, his energy is like infectious, just real good vibes. And I was like, I want to just be around this guy. And so today we've got Jason Muth on the show. Jason, why don't you just kick it off with like what your background was before you got into STRs, and then we'll kind of pick it up from there.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, that was a nice intro, Mike. I appreciate that. So I worked for 25 years in the media business. I worked for, national television and radio companies, the biggest names in those industries. So Comcast, NBC Universal for a while, iHeartMedia for a while, and most recently a company called Beasley Media, which I think is like the third largest radio group in the US, but they kind of dominate the markets that they're in. They're just not in all the markets like iHeart. And roughly half that time I spent on the research side. So I was kind of in-house market research, traveling the country, conducting lots of focus groups for many, many years. And then about half that time, I was a digital sales manager or director, where my job was to work with the local sales teams. We sold to local and medium-sized businesses. And basically my job was to, try to add digital into whatever campaign they were selling for a traditional media campaign. And there were a couple digital jobs along the way, but those were kind of the two lion's share of it. And I didn't really go to school for media. I just did media in college and loved it. Back in the early days of alternative rock radio, I was on the radio in Providence, Rhode Island when I went to Brown, and I was supposed to go to med school and just didn't fall in love with it anymore. So went to the media world. And then, short-term rentals kind of came along that journey back in 2016. And here we are now in chapter 2 of my life doing short-term rentals. So now I can say I'm a full-time real estate investor.
Love that, dude. Love that. And I didn't know that about all the media stuff. That's cool. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's an interesting field in that everyone thinks that, the media business is mostly what you see on camera or what you hear. And that's where I started, and you kind of learn the ropes there. And then I found my way into some areas of the media business that I could use my mind a little bit better, interact with people. No disrespect to the on-air talent. It's a really, really tough field. But, we were the stuff that kept things moving, brought money in, or kept the ratings going on the research side. And I loved it. It's a great business. It's just very unforgiving, and it's very tough. And
Yeah.
every year, it's like musical chairs. Every year they take a couple chairs away. And eventually your time is called, and my time was called last year.
I forget. I can't remember the name of the show, but Apple TV has a show with Jennifer Aniston about like being a
Yeah.
TV anchor. I got sucked
Yeah.
into that. I was like, damn,
Yeah.
this is such a cutthroat world over there.
It is, especially for the on-air talent too. If you're on camera, they want to probably try to stay as young as possible. And it's very competitive. There's very few slots for the talent. And then behind the scenes, it's even competitive too, because as dollars shift around and more dollars are being spent in digital, a lot of those traditional companies that have, these FCC licenses, they struggle to maintain those dollars. And, if the pie was 100 today, tomorrow it's 99, and then 98, 97, it's a tough biz. But real estate is kind of an infinite biz, and a lot of people do find their way into real estate, yeah, as their second chapters. I like to call it the second chapter because I'm in my late 40s and I still have plenty of working to do, and I'm this is a great next field for me.
Yeah. And you guys have been doing great. And, a lot of the folks that we've talked to before have been heavy on the co-hosting side or the management side. You took a different approach, and you guys just straight up own your properties. So you've got
Hmm.
5 STRs now, plus a commercial office in Boston, I think you said. So
Hmm. Yeah.
how did that start? Like, what was the spark that you were like, you know what, let's just get into short-term rentals?
Yeah. So we're right now I'm at Baxter Lake, which is in New Hampshire. It's in Farmington, New Hampshire, about an hour where I live. We live in Newburyport now. After spending about 20 years in Boston, we were in Southie for a long time. The story does start there because I bought into South Boston back in the early 2000s, and Mike, as you know, Southie is a really hot neighborhood. we did great with the 2 properties. Actually, we owned 3 because the commercial condo was there, but the 2 residential properties, we did really, really well there. So after 10 years, we traded up to a larger place, and then we kind of used that place as a bit of a piggy bank to stimulate, some of these vacation rentals. So the first one that we bought here at Baxter Lake was in 2016. The reason we bought it is because my in-laws had a couple camps down the street. Oddly enough, they were doing STRs before me. They don't do it anymore, but they were on Airbnb before I was. And we stayed in one of them on one of our visits up here, and the bed was super uncomfortable. And, the sun would come screaming in at 5 in the morning in the middle of the summer, and my dog walked around and her fingernails needed to get clipped. And I was like, I don't like where I'm staying. And if I'm going to keep coming into the lake for the rest of my life, if we have kids, which we have a 4-year-old now, then I need to figure something else out. And we happened to see a house for sale that was on the market for a few months, price reduction. This is back in 2016 when that kind of stuff happened. And we looked at it and we bought it. And it was a $192,000 purchase. It's probably worth about $450 right now. And, we've STR'd it since then. We had no idea what we were doing. So we said, we're going to learn this along the way, like a lot of people in this business. I did another, weekend warrior, doing projects yourselves, learning everything along the way. There was no coaching. There was no instruction. Your mastermind didn't exist. You probably weren't even doing STRs back in 2016, right? Were you?
No, late 2017
No.
For me.
Yeah. So, so we've been Airbnb superhost for 25, not consecutive because I missed one, but 25 quarters, and Verbo, I think 23 or 24 for Premiere. So we've been doing it for a while. And, working my job in the media, like I loved what I was doing as a digital director. I was kind of making some good money there, working my way up in the business, and did this on the side. And I'm glad I did that because, that first one led to a second one down in Provincetown on Cape Cod. And then that led to some land that we purchased up here. And then that led to the purchase of this house that I'm in right now. Then we built a house next door, like from the ground up, which looks fantastic. It's like my favorite of all the ones we have. And then somewhere along the way, about a year ago, back when you and I were in Miami for the retreat last year, we put an offer in on a place up in Guilford, New Hampshire. So it just kind of spiraled. And, last year when I was told that my job was no more, I was like, that's fine, because I was going to do this anyway. So that just sped up the process.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. What were some of the things, because you were, like you said, you were kind of doing it on your own. What were some of the early lessons that you learned kind of through trial and error at the beginning? Like, oh, damn, that was a hard lesson, or I'm not going to make that mistake again.
So I have a clear example of this, and it was one of our very first guests that we had back in the winter of 2017. We just used the place for New Year's with our friends, and I noticed that a pipe had frozen. I'd never had that happen in my life before. Didn't kind of know what to do, but luckily we had a hairdryer there because my sister-in-law was like, "You should probably put hand dryers in your places." Didn't even occur to me to do that. So we thawed the pipe out. I left it on a drip. I told guests, "Hey, just leave it on a drip. I'm going to get this thing fixed in a couple of weeks." Sure enough, they didn't. Pipe burst, water from the second floor, first floor, basement, just complete catastrophe. It almost broke me. It almost said to me, like, why am I doing this? Like, this is, and in the meantime, we'd had a roof leak at our second place in Southeast. So we were sleeping on a mattress on the floor in the extra bedroom while we were having mold remediated and drywall taken out from there. And I was just like, this is just like, literally when it rains, it pours. So, but you know what? We dusted ourselves off and figured out the problem and, got it fixed. Everything is fixable. And that's something my father told me, like, literally, like, if it breaks, you fix it, you figure it out. So we weren't even 2 or 3 months into it. And that happened and seemed like such a catastrophe, but we just stuck our head down and kept going. And the second big, kind of catastrophe is the beginning of COVID. We had 2 places going. And if you remember the spring of 2020, we'd taken off from the city. Like March, April up here isn't super busy. So once I realized things were closing, we're like, let's get out of here. Like, we'll have some more space up in New Hampshire. So we literally lived up here for 3 months at the place next door, and everything closed and all my bookings came off the calendar. So now I'm staring at 2 extra mortgages here in New Hampshire and Provincetown. And I'm like, how am I going to get these things paid? But again, stick your head down, figure it out, be patient. Bookings started to come back again. The calendar rebooked. And then on you go, so They were both, I would put them both in the catastrophic, category, but it didn't break me. And I said, I'm just going to keep going forward with these things. I'm glad I did.
I appreciate you sharing that because I've said it a few times on the podcast and on these. It's like it's not always sunshine and rainbows. You're going to have real tough weeks. And that's why I'm so big on like, why are you doing this? Because if you don't have a reason or there's nothing compelling pulling you towards it, you're going to quit because it will break you, right? There's always going to be things that come up.
Yeah.
And the bigger you go, the more things tend to break as you go. And then you just got to fix them, right? So appreciate you sharing that. So we met, what was it? Was it the first STR Wealth Con that we met?
Yep, about a year ago. So I joined the Mastermind last August, and I joined after seeing Chris Petsy speaking at a meetup in Dover, New Hampshire. So I was up here doing some work. It was just a month after my job ended, early August. I kind of knew this is what I was going to do next. I actually stumbled upon some of your videos in the weeks leading up to that, and I didn't know who you were. And I'm like, who's this guy? And then I realized that, like, oh, you live in, you live nearby. Like, you actually were a Northeasterner, lived in, where you used to live. And I was like, all right, I think I like his videos, I like his stuff. And then I happened to go to that STR focused meetup, and Chris was speaking, and he mentioned he was one of your coaches, and he mentioned the Miami conference. I remember listening to him, and it was a packed house. It was like 30 people were in there, 40 people. It was like the biggest meetup they'd had in a while in Dover. And I went up to him afterward. I was like, I've never met you before, but, I think what I heard from you, I think I'm doing like 85% of everything right. And I feel really great about hearing that, but I need more people like you in my life. And like, how do I do that? Because everything up to that point I've been doing on my own. Right. And you learn along the way, but you didn't have a cohort, a group of people that you can, lean on for support or for questions or, just because you're all doing the same thing. So I told him I was going to the Bigger Pockets conference last year, which I went to out in San Diego. And he's like, that's cool. But what you really should come to is STR Wealth in Miami. And, the next day I signed up for it, like immediately. I'm like, screw it. I'm going all in. Literally, I'm all in on STRs for 18 months. If it doesn't work out, at least I went all in. So I decided to go to that conference along with Bigger Pockets, which I wanted to go to for years. And then I think I started getting your emails, and then I learned about the Mastermind. I applied for it, met with Mike Riley, signed on the spot. So within that week, I was in your group and going to Miami. And it was really just like, take action, go all in. That I literally said, I'm going to go all in on short-term rentals for 12 to 18 months. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to just get another job, because I'm employable. But yeah, I didn't want to have to go get another job immediately for a long, long list of reasons. And I already had this skill set that was like the side hustle. So, those two things alone, helped me really go all in. And Miami it was amazing. You guys put on a really good conference there. I mean, Nashville's great too, but I loved Miami. It was so intimate. Got to meet you, really spend some time with you and Bill and all the big players, and, make some good friendships and partnerships there.
Hang on the yacht for a little bit. That didn't hurt. That was fun.
That didn't hurt. Yeah. On the yacht, I met Jake Cohen, and I ended up going out to visit Jake in Steamboat Springs back in the spring when he invited me and a bunch of people out there to kind of think tank for a week. And, that was another great week I would have never had if I hadn't gone to Miami. So, just these relationships kind of build, one thing leads to another.
It's your cheat code, man. I tell everybody, it's like going back to everything is fixable. It is. And it gets a lot easier when you have the Rolodex of people that you can call and figure stuff out way faster. Yeah. Like, it is your cheat code. So being in now about a year, what do you think have been some of your biggest takeaways? And I guess, how many units did you have when you started? Have you added some since? And then what were some of your takeaways?
So when I joined, we had 2 live, and a third one, this one that I'm sitting in right now, was about to go live. So we'd purchased this one in September of 2021, and it took us a little while to get things going because, again, we're working full-time jobs. We ended up living here for about 3 weeks ourselves, like between Boston and Newburyport. And it just took a while to kind of get this one going because I wasn't able to focus on it full time. But after I joined the Mastermind, this one kind of went online around that same time. So I wouldn't say it was a consequence of joining. It was already in the works. The one we were building next door, that was also in the works. But, we'd really broken ground in January, and my builder started swinging a hammer probably in June. And I got to watch a lot of that from sitting here because we were still working W-2 remotely at the time. So that one was also in the works, but, I really, joining the mastermind helped, refocus my energy on the things I had to do to really launch that one with a lot of success. And that one is just blown out of the water. The fifth one we did purchase since joining the mastermind. And I think that we looked at a bunch of properties up in the Lake Winnipesaukee area before I came down to Miami. We had some money left over from the sale of our place in Boston that we didn't need to bring over to the place in Newburyport because, we downsized our mortgage and doubled our space going from Southie to Newburyport, and took a couple $100,000 off the table to reinvest somewhere else. And Guilford's a great market. Winnipesaukee is kind of a classic. It's a classic vacation destination. It's a 3-season place: summer, fall, winter. Got a great concert venue up there. Noah Khan was just there yesterday and the day before. I think Chris Petsy was at that show. And Zach Brown was there last weekend. So, it's a really, really good market. And we bought that place. I think going to Miami, I was kind of infected by the entrepreneurs that were there, and we were negotiating when I went down there, and finally we got it done while I was in my hotel room. And then I went downstairs and told everyone that I'm buying another place, and sure enough, we bought it. So those places were all, either in the works or kind of in the back of my head. And then the past year, what I've really needed to do was get them all live. So my full focus the past year was build my systems, build my teams locally, get these places furnished, get all my software in line, all the hardware on site, and then get those done, literally get them done. I'd made a goal back in 2016. I said, let me buy one place every year for 10 years in a row. It just seemed like a decent goal to have. We're at 6. I don't know if we're going to get to the 10 because, for interest rates are where they are. I don't know if I want to reinvest in another property right now that I'm going to have to wait for it to cash flow positive for a year or two. So, I'm going to reinvest in the current properties that we have right now, upgrade them. I've learned a lot about what things need to be put into these properties in terms of amenities. So I'm going to kind of get those all in line. And I made it very clear early on, I did not want to co-host because I wanted to be my own boss. I was tired of, having to go pitch people and answer to them after many, many years of being a digital sales director and manager. But that might be changing right now. And that's kind of a new development.
I was going to say, I wasn't even aware of that.
No. So it's we're working on something down in Provincetown because I think I'm uniquely qualified for that market specifically. The big players there are national, and P-Town's a very gay friendly place, like one of the gayest in the country. So I have a feeling that, both being part of STR and being, in a same-sex marriage, I'm uniquely qualified there. So we're in the process of building that out.
And it's a massive destination spot.
Yeah.
So, like, at a premium. I mean, whether you're gay or not, like, people love to go there, like, regardless too. Like, that place is amazing.
Yeah. The owners, there's some straight owners too. Our building, the people on the main level are a straight doctor couple. But yeah, it's unabashedly gay. And I think that we're going to lean into that a little bit and get that off the ground. And really what I have to do is with intention, say it, right? I have to be saying that I'm doing this. I know you didn't know it, but like there's a website built, my VA built everything. Like I have a call at 1 o'clock with my business partner. Like we're going to get these things off the ground. We want to announce it leaning into, the fall season and start really networking and doing a lot of word of mouth that we're going to do this. But, the reason that we're doing it is because, you asked about the why. I think what's important to me is continuing to move forward. I don't really need to do it because I think the 5 properties can put us where we need to be financially, both from a cash flow perspective and appreciation, tax benefits, all that great stuff. But if I'm not going to buy another property in the next 6 to 12 months, like why not launch this? Like, I just feel like you guys have taught us so much stuff that I'm not optimizing my skill set if I don't.
Interesting. Well, I am excited to hear that for you because I think you could absolutely crush that market. Um,
Hmm.
very cool. Very cool. Um, so the one last question I wanted to ask you, and I think it's perfect to ask you this because you're already doing this, right? And so a lot of people they watch the stuff, they listen to the podcast, they do all this, and maybe they've got a few units, maybe they've been doing it a few years. And they're like, why should I join this community? Why should I get in the mastermind? What was your thought process? I know you talked about it a little bit, but like, what advice would you give somebody like that?
You know, I was in a little different of a position. Like I had some money to invest, you know, because we'd saved up some money. I worked for a long time. You know, joining the mastermind is an investment in yourself, you know, but it's an investment. It costs money. Like dollars get transferred from, you know, us to the business. So you have to make sure it's the right thing for you. And I basically, again, just said, I'm going to give myself, I literally said 12 to 18 months from July of 2022 through the end of this year, 2023, to try this out. And if it didn't work by the end of that period of time, I just wanted to make sure I did everything possible along the way that was going to lead me to success. One of those things was, you know, having to build my network in this space. We love going to real estate now, you know, meetups. Like we hosted one for a little while in Boston. But you know, COVID kind of kept coming back. In-person events were really difficult. We had a child along the way. It made it really difficult for us to both be at events like that. So I knew the value of building my network. And, you know, what I loved personally, I loved a lot that a lot of the coaches are New England people too. You know, I felt more of, I don't know. I don't want to say this the wrong way, but I think if you're going to go into any coaching program, whether it's STR, secrets or any other person's program, you have to feel a connection to the people that are leading it. And you have to feel like they're trustworthy and that they've done it. And, you know, everybody passed the sniff test. Um, so I just went with my gut and said, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like if this isn't successful, I'm going to be out a little bit of money, you know, oh, well. And then, you know, you join and you realize how much, you know, the videos that you've built, the systems that you have, you know, the tools are all there. And I'm not being paid to say this. I'm not a shill, but I've really appreciated everything that the group has given. And it gives if you want to take, you know, everyone's really kind with their time. I've never had a situation where I needed to reach out to a coach and they've said, I don't have time for it. It's like, here's a link to my calendar, come book it. You know, there's so many opportunities to have your voice heard on the coaching calls. The Facebook community is basically the top one I participate in just because it's not noise. There's so many free groups out there that are awful. They're just so bad. It's just people complaining and bitching about stuff, you know, complaining about guests, complaining about this. It's not productive, you know, but one thing I've loved about the real estate investing space and especially the short-term rental space is it's not even competitive. No one's competing with each other. You know, the world I just came from in the media business, everyone is competing to get to that next step. And again, you know that one chair is going to be taken away every few months. Here, it's not like that at all. And I think it's just a really welcoming, encouraging community of people who are all doing something very similar in very different spots. They're always comparing notes. They're always welcome to meet each other. You know, I don't know. I don't have a bad thing to say.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And I just want to highlight the one thing that you've repeated a few times. And I tell people this all the time, especially if they're considering investing with us or anybody else. Are you willing to commit 18 months to 2 years of your life to make this work? Because if you do that and you do go all in, you will win. You just will. But
Mm-hmm.
most people, they just won't give it that long. And I get it. But one of my first mentors taught me, like, go an inch wide and a mile deep and just focus on that one thing and crush it
Yeah.
until you get the results.
Let me just quickly share some of the actual numbers. Like in this past August, I just ran numbers about a week ago. You know, the two properties that we can comp year over year, they were up 19% this August versus last August. You know, everyone's talking about Airbnb being down and Airbnb bust and everything, but if you do it right, it's not, you know, and if you have good, desirable properties in great places, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be up 19% in those two properties again next year, but I was up 19% in those two. And then, August over August, I doubled revenue because we added 3 more properties from, actually we had 1 live last August, but like revenue was more than double. Sure, expenses were too, but I'm focused on top line right now. Like I need that number going up and up and up. So, I think it was a successful, year of learning from the group, implementing some better systems and really squeezing as much juice out of the lemon as I could.
Love that. Love that. Well, Jason, appreciate your time, man. I want to keep this nice and tight. I know it's Friday morning here, but again, thank you for coming on. Where can folks learn more about you and check out your properties and all that good stuff?
Yep. So thank you. So you can go to our website. You can't really see it there. Actually, I have to go that way. It's a straightforward STRs.com. So straightforward short-term rentals. My email is jason@straightforwardstrs.com. You can check out our podcast too, the Real Estate Law Podcast. So if you Google the Real Estate Law Podcast, you will find lots of instances of that. We just had some Bigger Pockets guys on. Dave Meyer just recorded with us. We have some big episodes coming up. The Mike Sjogren episode will be coming up. I know it will, but we'll get that on the calendar soon. And we talk STRs. We talk lots of investing there. We talk about legal as well because my husband's a real estate lawyer. So, give it a listen, drop us a comment, email us if you want to be on it.
Awesome. Appreciate your time, buddy. Everybody else, enjoy your weekend, get clear on your goals, and just decide if you're willing to commit and just go all in. So that's it for this week, folks. Talk to you soon.